having gone through the experience of doing those few episodes, recognizing the importance of having a more positive mindset, particularly when you're in a situation like lockdown, a bit more restricted, to be honest, I found for me, that wasn't enough. And notwithstanding the benefit that provided in terms of, I imagine it was a lot better than I would have been had I sat there the whole time thinking, I'm over this and I'm over that. But at the end of the day, I think we do still need to look at some, whether it be systems that we can put in place from ourselves to ease things a little bit, whether we look to lighten the load in some ways, in terms of that's a little bit what today's podcast is about. But I think it's a really important point that you're making there in terms of don't back ourselves into a corner with our language and say, look, I am in a really helpless situation now. But I think then we do need to recognise from that point, what are the things that we need to do to lift our mood over a prolonged period of time of, for example, a couple of days?
Yes, and I think that's a big thing, as you say, having some specific strategies is a big part of it. But let's look at another kind of mindset, if you like, or another kind of outlook, which I think could be really problematic. Just say if someone tells themselves, I should be functioning as I would normally function. While in a very unusually stressful situation of a prolonged pandemic where there can be times of the fourth Melbourne lockdown has gone for a couple of weeks. It was only 1 week in Geelong. We had it more lightly here, and the ongoing restrictions are lighter and lightening quicker in Geelong than Melbourne. But I think one of the biggest problems is if people expect themselves to function as they otherwise would, if there weren't that prolonged stress. And that's what we would call a mastery approach, which I think is a trap. So again, if we contrast the different approaches, there's, if you like, a helpless approach, which is, I feel bad, this is really difficult and I can't stand it. And it's a little bit of I'm over it kind of thinking. Then there's a coping approach, which is, I feel bad and this is really tough, but somehow I'll look to muddle my way through. And then you get a mastery approach, which is, this isn't so tough, or I'm not finding it that bad, despite the fact of struggling objectively in a number of ways, or otherwise telling oneself, this shouldn't be so bad. I should be able to function just as efficiently and just be as bright and happy and chirpy and just all calm within myself. No, that's not psychologically particularly healthy in my view. That would be setting oneself up for failure. That would be putting an extra load of pressure on oneself when, as you say, we're calling this episode lightening the load. It's kind of saying, hey, take the pressure off, cut some corners, give yourself some slack, make things a little bit easier for yourself to allow for the fact this has been prolonged ongoing stress, which puts more than enough demands on us as it is. We need to kind of adapt and compensate for that in some way.